Hey guys, how's it going? Matt from Foul Ball Productions here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hope that you're doing well because I'm doing phenomenally. Thank you very much. This is the 90th episode of the MFer podcast coming at you on a Wednesday. I apologize for not being here last night. Things happen. Sometimes they're unavoidable and you just got to postpone the show. But look at me. Look at me. I'm here. I'm doing the makeup. Doing the makeup Wednesday, so I apologize if you had, your fingers crossed, you had your cocoa out and your popcorn, and you're all sitting down. You got the kids gathered around. Honey, get in here. It's the 90th episode of the MFer podcast coming live. But then I had to disappoint you, and you'd be like, "What? What? I'm sorry, little Timmy. Don't cry. Don't cry. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure he'll be back tomorrow. Dry your tears. We'll watch next Wednesday." Anyway, here I am. And boy, do I got a show for you tonight. Let me tell you, folks, lots to talk about. I pulled a whole bunch of clips. I've woven a narrative. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We are going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And hello, Cotton Ministries. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining tonight, this evening, this Wednesday, this off night. Don't forget, after this, at 9 p.m. Central in 3 hours from now, Zach's show. We're going to be doing Zach's Cinema Clash. Going to be autistically spurging about movies and which year is better and which genre and so on and so forth. And if you're an autistic movie nerd like myself, you'll appreciate the content. All right. Anyway, so I was thinking, excuse me. We've been talking about Trump, Donald J. Trump. Hello, Sentient Dildo. What's cracking? Hello, sir. And how we're not in love with a lot of the stuff that's been going on. And I started thinking about like liberals and like the left, and just kind of like having the discussion with them. And the thing that happens a lot of times when you talk about, your politics, if you're on a divide, right? It's like, if Trump fails, like, see, fucking told you, people get all self-righteous. And it's like, well, listen, I am still for the things he said he was going to do. And that's the difference. The difference is I'm upset that it's not living up to the hype. You didn't even believe in it. You don't like the ideas, even in their most idealistic execution. And that's the big divide. That's the issue. And that's the thing. It's like, I've been paying attention. There's been so much discussion online of late, especially regarding like Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, the MAGA, failures, successes, the right-wing civil war. And it's very notable how much the left is just not even a part of the conversation. Yet we're not debating, the trans thing, the DEI, none of that. All that is settled. That is settled science. Those discussions they're not discussions anymore, because what's to discuss? Once the institutions aren't throttled, right? Once, social media is actually a relatively free sphere to communicate ideas. Once YouTube isn't locked down because the Biden administration doesn't want you talking COVID, those liberal ideas, they don't hold any intellectual water. They don't stick around. They only stick around because they got bullied into the conversation, Or maybe even some of the more well-meaning concepts, or even some of the better ideas that the left has offered in the past, typically in like serious debate, serious discussion, they really do get kind of proven out to not be true. And, most charitably are kind of idealistic concepts more than practical realities and applications, And I noticed that's one of the biggest divides. And I think it's one of the most frustrating things about people on the left is that obstinance to relinquish some of these things. Like I had a buddy back in LA, he's a black guy, and we used to talk, hip hop, rap music, the bars from the streets, me, guys. He was not a big fan of Kendrick Lamar, but around the time we were friends, we were hanging out, Kendrick Lamar had won the Pulitzer Prize. And I was like, what the fuck is that gay shit? Like, I haven't been a hip hop fan for a very long time. and gone back and deep into the genre. Sorry, I got distracted by your little thing discussion online telling me it ain't so. Well, you see what happens. You see what happens when they let the dogs off the leash. All of a sudden, everyone's like, fuck Israel. Oops. Oopsie. Second order effect. But we were talking about hip hop, and we were talking about Kendrick Lamar getting the Pulitzer Prize. And I know he did not like Kendrick Lamar. I know he did not. But he refused to acknowledge that it was a bullshit DEI Pulitzer Prize. Like, and I wasn't trying to frame it like that, but I was just like, and he's like, well, like, and he had this kind of thing where it was like, even though he knows it's like not a participation trophy, it's even worse because it's given, basically on the themes kind of concept. It's like, well, the themes are about Black oppression or slavery or whatever the fuck Kendrick's talking about. Therefore, it deserves the award. And it's like, that's not true. Like, you, my friend, who's a rational person, we're not on TV. No one's watching this conversation. This is just an interpersonal conversation between me and you. It's not true, but he refused to admit it. Would never concede that point, even though he know in his heart, he did not believe that, but he could not admit it to me. He couldn't give me that point. And I don't know if it was a white thing. He got pretty woke towards the end of our friendship, but I to me, that's like the crux of the issue when it comes to any like discussion with the left. It's like, okay, it doesn't work. Welfare failed. This kind of unbridled feminism failed. Like unfettered border access failed. These aren't discussions. You know what I mean? We're not going back and forth. The only discussion here is that you haven't done any work, or you aren't really curious about examining the conversation honestly. You just want to have, the good feels about you being a good person, even though it doesn't work. And that's the thing. It's like, even on things like trans and sports, trans bathrooms, they will concede it silently in the sense that they won't push it anymore, but they'll never be like, yeah, we were wrong about that. Our bad. And I understand that's a truth about, that's just a truth about people, but I don't think there's not many people on the right, unless you're one of the architects of the Iraq war, who is just like, no, that was the right thing to do. And they hated our freedom, and we should have stomped out those millions of people because, Dorka. I mean, that's maybe not the best example because it's a bit old and it's kind of an easy one to take, but I don't know. I like, of course there's always going to be obstinate idiots, but I don't consider them anyway. The people that Cotton talks about, the kind of like MAGA people who Trump never does anything wrong. Like, those people are irrelevant to the conversation anyway. So who gives a shit? We're not talking about them. We're talking about people who are like intellectually valid. And it's I just noticed that seems to be a much more common thing on the left, is not giving an inch on things aren't true. It doesn't work. That's not a woman. Stop. I do just hate to see a Black man succeed. You're right, Sentient Dildo. It's my internalized colonizer. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm a European man. I'm born. What did Josh Hammer say? I'm born with anti-Semitism. I'm born. All Europeans have born anti-Semitism or something, genetically anti-Semitic or some crazy shit. It's just true. It's just true. Just us, by the way. We're the only ones with any kind of impure blood. But that was just something I was thinking about with the left. It's just kind of like, I mean, it's not working out for our interest with Trump, but that doesn't mean we were wrong about what we wanted out of him. It's not like you had a good right-wing alternative. It's not like you were running Thomas Massey and we were like, no, go fuck yourself. It was like, no, you had the psycho. You had the craziest possible. You had absolute, destruction. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again because I think it's worth reflecting on, to be completely honest. That what I just laid out there, that conversation, the fact that we're basically the conversation in any kind of worthy spheres is just, well, how far do we take deportations? How big should the government be? Should we be entangled with Israel? That's the discussions, not any of that leftist nonsense that was just clouding real conversation. Oh shit, I forgot my point. Oh, right. But that is remarkable. That is a remarkable. We were not, I don't even think a year ago we were there. When did Trump win? About a year? Maybe 18 months ago is when that really, we didn't have to discuss these things anymore. It's kind of like, it's like the guys, like Gary, Geeks and Gamers, those guys, Mauler and Critical Drinker. It's kind of like, whenever they do a review or like when a new movie comes out, it's not the way it was where we're just like, get them. It's just like, yeah, we know it stinks. It's like, it's settled science. You're right. You guys won. Hollywood's woke. So what's to discuss? It's like, we've just gotten to the point with conversation that we've moved so far past, like the left has bad ideas to the point where they're not even in the conversation, but that is an incredible win into itself. That's huge. And I still think we all need to take a moment every once in a while and be grateful for that, because it was not like that for a very long time. It's extraordinarily recent with this has all changed into this type of conversation. And I think that's all on the back of the Trump win, whether that is Trump's doing or anything like that. It's the cultural shift, the vibe shift, as it's referred to. And I just think we should always thank our lucky stars for that, because it's like, that could very much go away. If we get, Queen AOC in there with, Gavin Newsom as the vice president or something like that, it's over. It's done. So just remember, man, the ball moves pretty fast around here, and every days just spin by like a slot machine. But it was not that long ago where channels were getting nuked for saying the word COVID. We had code words for the word COVID. That's gone. These are good things, things to be grateful for. All right. What are you saying? Cotton Ministries. The best part about X is when I post multiple times with anti-Israel content and purple-haired libtards think I'm on their side. Well, to be fair, you are. On this particular issue, you are, That I think is one of the biggest hurdles for, being anti-Israel or, pro-Palestine or just critical of Israel. That was one of the first, for me, that was one of the first significant hurdles to get over. I was like, I agree with those fucking people. I can't agree with them. I can't. There's got to be more to the story. There has got to be another side to this I'm not seeing. Please, someone enlighten me on what the truth of the matter is. It can't be that those people are right. And they were. They were correct. I think for the wrong reasons. We actually have a really great clip about that. We're going to play a little bit later on. I think for the wrong reasons. I think basically they saw brown people and white people in a conflict and they just immediately knew whose side they were on. It happened to be the correct side, but I think they didn't, they didn't deduce that out of any kind of well-fought, hard-earned logic, They were just like, meh, you know what I mean? And that meh happened to be correct this time around. But yeah, no, there's no shame in that. And in fact, I think that's a good thing. Because to me, what that says is that in this country where we have been so divided on everything, can't even agree on the definition of a woman. Truly, that was very recent. People were still losing didn't Zuby lose his channel or something like that? Some kind of huge consequence for misgendering someone? That was a thing. That was a big problem just this, very recently. We couldn't, the left and right couldn't even agree on that. And we still don't to a lot of degree. Their biggest thing is still the border and getting rid of illegal immigrants as if that's some sort of sin or crime, correcting the sins of the past. But we agree on this. We agree on that. That is remarkable. Never a bigger divide between left and right, and yet we come together on this issue. That's a good thing. Yeah, they suck. Yeah, they're insufferable. Yeah, they'll stab you in the back the second, anything changes. Don't get me wrong. They still hate white people. They still hate America. That hasn't changed. But the fact of the matter is there's one issue in this country, in this giant divided, vitriolic, knives at each other's throat country that we agree on. And that's fuck Israel. They're wrong. We don't want them in our country. We don't want them in our politics. That's amazing. That's an incredible coalition. We couldn't come together on anything like that. We couldn't even come together on the goddamn Ukraine war. We're not even involved in, or, whatever. Left and right are divided on that. Not this thing. Not this discussion. What does that tell you? That tells you you're doing some pretty shitty things. If you know, like the meme, the Predator meme with Arnold and Carl Weathers and the arms, and it's just like, so it's like liberals, Republicans, fuck Israel. That's pretty remarkable. All those splendid discussions in the marketplace of ideas, I'm moved to tears. You laugh, but we are pretty free. I mean, you know, I used to shit on Rumble, not shit on it. I never said anything about it, but I was like, you know, I would dual stream to Rumble. Never got anything. I think it was probably just even the few views I got were probably bots. There were never any comments or very rarely likes. I don't know what my engagement numbers are because I never looked, because it's just like, this is a dead platform. You know, you see Steven Crowder's got 100,000 people watching live or something like that, and then nothing else going on the channel. So it almost became kind of like one of those like niche channels. Like I think Razor Fist has one, like Anchor, Unauthorized TV, you know, stuff like that, where it's literally just a few creators prop up the entire service, and there's like, you know, maybe a few other shows going on. I think that's what Rumble really turned into. But Jesus Christ, dude, this Nick Fuentes kid, man, like, he doesn't exist without like a free speech platform like Rumble, where you can really just say anything and there are no limits. I mean, it's just like, because he pretty much would shatter almost every other one's terms of service. They let him go. And it's like, that's good. Dude, that kid, I was watching him last night. I think legitimately it was like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And he had like, I think it was 50,000 live viewers or something like that. Kid's a force, dude. Don't underestimate him. From the cooking pots, the frogs cheer as the heat is turned down. Ooh, an old Croatian proverb, as my grandmother used to say while she's making goulash or whatever the fuck it is you people eat. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. I think it's something I've thought about quite a bit. You know, it's sort of like, what was it Stalin that said this? Where it's kind of like, you don't want to give the people anything, because if you give them just a little, then that gives them hope, you know, and that hope can build into rebellion. And that's, I mean, it's like, you don't realize that you've been deprived of these things. Yeah, you know what? That actually, let me play a clip. I do want to play a clip. Since when are you not involved in Ukraine? Oh, no, we very much are. I'm saying the divide on whether we should. We are, though. I mean, but I'd say if you polled most right-wing Americans what they thought about being in Ukraine, should we or should we not, I think you'd get more people on the right by a significant margin saying that we should not be there because it's, you know, a waste of energy. It's not our fight. We are very much in Ukraine, sadly, you know. Trump I ended 9 wars. The most peaceful president. No one's more peaceful than me. I'm Zen. I'm Buddha, baby. But not that one. Can't end that one. What, I haven't heard anything about that conflict in so long. Even when I go to antiwar.com, it doesn't really make the top headlines. I don't really scour that website for too much because it's a bit of a bummer. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if they're a stalemate. I don't know how many people are dying. Should probably look into that a little bit. But anyway, you know what? Speaking of what you were saying about the frogs and the water, let me play. I hope this isn't too long of a clip. I wasn't intending on talking about it, but once you brought that up, it made me think about it. This is it's going to be a clip from, you know, I love him, Dave Smith. He was on Bradley Martin's Raw Talk. I've seen clips of this Bradley Martin fella. I have no idea who he is at all, but he's got 809,000 subscribers, so he's doing something right. But they were, you know, I think he had Dave on for the first time, and they were just discussing kind of like broader topics, Israel, America, stuff like that. And he was this guy was actually a good interviewer. He was a good listener, and he seemed to have like good deductive reasoning and good logic. Like he wasn't stupid at all. Didn't seem like incredibly well educated, but seemed like like he could observe things well. I don't know him. I don't know. Maybe you guys know him, but not interesting. No Browns getting nuked. I guess so. I don't know. YouTube is trashing everything I say. Really? I wonder how many of the old restrictions are still around, because last week's live stream was weird. Like while we were doing this, there were like a bunch of people popping in and out. And when I was done, it said there was like 400 and some odd viewers, which I was like, hey, that's way more than normal. And then it took some of these views down, and then it never put it out in the algorithm, because recently the algorithm's been kind of giving me some extra numbers to get like a few hundred views during the week, but not this time. It stopped it dead and took away views. And I was like, what the fuck was that? What was that, YouTube? So I don't know, man. Maybe there's stuff to still up to some shenanigans. I mean, like I said, they nuked Zoomer Historian's channel. I heard about some guy, Camelback or something. Camelcast. I think that's it. He apparently a user, like someone who had been on his channel quite a bit, had what he claims is that someone hacked that guy's financials and then called like fraudulent charges on all these YouTube super chats. And now Camelcast says that YouTube is charging him to pay back over $10,000 in super chats. I feel like there's got to be more to the story, because that sounds insane, but that's allegedly what's going on. So maybe there's some wacky shit going on with YouTube again. I really don't know. What's up, Low Spec? How you doing? Between ads covering chat, ads in general, and AI slop, this platform is becoming unwatchable. Well, they keep mixing up the algorithm. I mean, the other day I was browsing for something to watch, and I was just like, what is all this shit? I don't watch these channels. One was like literally like, hey, how to make meatballs and bake a burr. I was like, what is this shit? I need some white supremacy now. I need some Jew hate. Just kidding. It's just a joke. Just a joke. But I was like, yeah, where's my typical algorithm? It was really weird. Oh, yes, this is true, Sentient Dildo. Dasha from Red Scare. Now, I've never watched this show. I've heard about it. I used to work with a pretty sexy girl who recommended that I watch it, and I think I gave it about 15 minutes, and I didn't find them offensive, but I also found them just devoid of value for me. I was like, this is okay for me. But yeah, so she got canceled for having Fuentes on, and they put it behind a paywall on a Patreon. So it wasn't even like widespread. It wasn't anything to the degree of like the Tucker interview. It was just more like talked about. And then she, her agency dropped her and pulled her contract from the A24 film she was acting in. When things like this happens, it is a little tough. It's a little tough to not think of the stereotype, they control the media. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying. If you're going to be like, well, listen, if you go on somebody's show or have somebody on who says bad things about the Jews, we're going to make sure you can't work in Hollywood. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that, man? How can you look me in the eye? Pretty funny. But yeah, that sucks for her. She'll be fine. All right, so let's play. So this is interesting, and this is about what you were talking about a little bit, Dildo, with the frogs. Kind of. I think this is related. But anyway, Dave Smith on Bradley Martin's podcast.
It's kind of, World War II was, I think, objectively speaking, it's the worst thing that's ever happened in the world.
Just one single town. I swear to God, dude, when I was out there, and I would work these very elite parties at the highest levels. Like literally, there were no higher levels of Hollywood than the parties that I was working. These were the most powerful agents, the most powerful agencies, and the biggest movie stars. And it was all gays and Jews. All of it. The entire, 90%. It was an incredible overrepresentation of those two groups. The one thing is when you look around, I wasn't even thinking from a Jewish perspective, but when you look around, you're like, I really don't feel like gays are underprivileged. You know what I mean? Like, you're so overrepresented in the most desirable, or one of the most desirable, glamorous industries in the nation, and you run it. Is society really against you? Shut up. Hey, Ruben, what's up, buddy? How you doing, buddy? All right, back to this clip.
The worst, and World War I was at the time, and then World War II topped it. World War II was the worst thing that's ever happened. It's the biggest bloodbath in human history. That Europe and America all just went to war. The fighting wasn't here in America, but like Europe destroyed itself. Like, I don't know what could be worse than that. That like the most successful, most advanced continent with all their advancements, turn those advancements into weaponry and then just slaughter.
I probably should have found a better point to start this clip, but we're gonna get there. Yeah, sorry. You know, I've been radicalized by Nick Fuentes, and only that, and just only listening to that show. It has nothing to do. If it was just the genocide, that would be enough. That would be enough to be like, hey, I'm a little suspicious of this group that every time I criticize them, they say you're anti-Semitic. You know, this country, I mean, every time I criticize this country, all of a sudden I'm anti-Semitic. It's like, how are those two things? Why is that? You know, it's like, what if I just don't like that country's policies? It's like, well, this country represents all the Jews. So if you say anything bad about the country, you say something about like, you define that narrative. I didn't. But my point is, like, if it was just the mass murder of children and nothing else, and none of the other influence, and not Iraq war, and not, you know, all like the decades and decades of slaughter with the Palestinians, if it was literally just this one genocide, it's still okay to have a problem, to be suspicious. To be like, why? Anyway.
People, something like 60 million people died in the war. And so
on all sides.
Right. All sides. Yeah. Yes, there's just enormous deaths. I mean, Russians, Poles, Germans, French. The French kind of did better in World War II than World War I. But like all just the Eastern Europe and the fighting in the Pacific, the deaths were in the tens of millions. And so what happens is, because this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and then, of course, the victors write the history books as well. And I'm not implying anything by that I'm not saying. It doesn't mean the Holocaust didn't happen, because the Holocaust actually did.
Did it? I totally understand what like all the boomers who criticize Fuentes don't. Is that these are just the jokes you're not supposed to say, and that's why you say them, because of how upset you people get about it. And I don't mean Jews. I mean you people out there who are just like, oh, did you hear what he said? It's like, yeah, dude, that's what the joke is. It's called a troll, man. The punchline is you get upset. Grow up. Act like a man.
Happen. But it was one component of this huge bloodbath. It happened in the war is when this happened. And so it gets spun as it's like the foundational myth of the United States military industrial complex world empire. It's the foundational myth of Israel. And again, like Darryl Cooper makes this point, when I say it's a myth, I don't even mean it's not true. I just mean it's like, it's the thing, it is this load-bearing story that everything else rests
the
top. Yes. Yeah. And so
I'll just go there. I think that's a good enough of an intro to ramp into what I'm saying. Is that, yes, like we get this from the earliest days, you know, from as young as you can possibly remember. You get the propaganda for World War II. Now, to be fair, like I was born in 85. It was only ended 40 years before that. You know, it was relatively recent in history, especially being the worst thing that's ever happened. But it's not unique to me or the people born in the 80s. Everybody gets this. You get this, and you get these cartoon characters, right? That's the villains that are in this story. They're cartoon characters. They're not people. Like they're, you know, big old evil people. Like there's no humanity in analyzing, like, you know, the other side. And there's also very little in the way of like respecting or observing their grievances. Like, here's a good one. On Japan's side, I didn't know this till I went to Hawaii. We didn't have a military base in Hawaii. Pearl Harbor wasn't a thing until we started messing with that conflict and started putting an oil embargo on Japan. Then we moved our entire, or not our entire fleet, but a big part of our fleet to Hawaii, which is a lot fucking closer than California. So it's like, that's an act of aggression, right? Like if China parks a fucking fleet of you know, warships in Argentina, what are you doing down there? You know what I mean? We're going to notice, we're going to pay attention. I'm not saying that makes Pearl Harbor justified. It's just, it's a little more complicated than, hey, we were just sitting there, like in a field picking daisies, just holding hands and loving each other. And all of a sudden, Japan just comes out of nowhere and attacks us. Now, listen, Japan was incredibly evil in World War II. It was the things that they did. I mean, they're lucky they only got 2 nukes. It should have just been like, that's it. Your civilization's over. You blew it. But there's more to the story. There's always more to the story. A lot more to the story. And we don't get that kind of education. And if we do, it's extremely thin. So why I say this and why I bring this up to what you were talking about, Sentient Dildo, is that so when the Iraq war pops off, right? We get 9/11. They hate us for our freedoms. And, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. In that framework, now, granted, I was only a teenager, but in that framework, when you get that kind of style of education and you believe that out in the rest of the world, there are these cartoonishly evil, mustache twirling villains, it's very easy to just be like, yeah, all right, kill them. Like, this is another Hitler. This is another World War II. This is another, oh my God, I can't think of the Emperor of Japan's name, but you know what I mean? Like, this is another, so you have to do it. And so that, like, that sort of, I guess it's indoctrination, but that kind of like propaganda really is what it comes down to. Does, frame your worldview and does make you a more complicit little good boy for these types of, propaganda campaigns and stuff like that. And, also we didn't have access to cameras all the time. We didn't see, like for Palestine, we saw the genocide in 4K on our phones every day. But it does make that type of conversation does make it easier to convince the populace that it's a good thing. No, this is good. This is for freedom. It's freedom that we're going to go massacre 1 million Iraqis who didn't do anything to us and have nothing to do with America at all. That's for freedom. It's for democracy, the most sacred of causes. But that, I think a lot of that has to do with that kind of like propagandizing. They're just giving you these, like, they're these cartoon kind of, these like, ghouls with no other side, no gray area, no humanity whatsoever. And I think it's kind of like what you're talking about with the, with the frogs, like cooling down the water. It's like the water was always at a certain temperature and we just didn't notice. And now the water's being cooled down and we're starting to look around. It's like, wait, are we on a stove? Have we been getting cooked this whole time? We just straight up didn't know. There just wasn't access to that information. Or if there was, you had to do like a fair amount of reading. Like the Israel Lobby, I think, was written in like 2006 or 7, the book that I'm reading right now. I heard about it for the first time like 2-3 years ago. No one talked about that. Like, even if I did go to the library and just start reading up on the Middle East, like, I don't even know if I would have come across that book. Where would you go in that around that era in 2008 to be like, well, how should I be informed on this? Do you know what I mean? Like, we literally just had like this narrative for most of our lives, and then the news backed it up and your teachers backed it up. It was no reason to question it. So it's like, I think a lot of that really is, what's happening right now is we're all getting unplugged from the matrix a bit, and it's happening fast, and they don't know what the hell's going on at all. What do we, okay. Well, you guys are talking quite a bit. You bet it better be. Wait, your marriage is progressing? Are you saying, Ruben, really? You're getting married again? Last I heard, it seemed like that was over. I don't know. But it is, yeah. And Senchadil said that better be under Christ. It better be. It's not even a joke now. You're not welcome. If you convert, you're not welcome around here, buddy. Senchadil, fun fact, the term Judeo-Christian values came into being in 1948. What a strange coincidence. That is a strange coincidence. What timing? What wonderful, what immense timing. Dude, I think I've talked about this before, but I swear to God, like, my understanding of the formation of Israel was literally like, hey, the Holocaust happened, and golly, what a horrible thing. And these poor Jews, we better do something. So let's give them Israel, Like, that was about as much of the story as I got almost my entire life. I mean, I'm 40. It's only been like in the past year, maybe 2, where I started to get more like the actual truth of that. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those things where I'm like, that's just weird. Like, why Israel? You're like, if anything, why don't you give them Germany? Like, why are you giving them Israel? Like, I don't ever, it doesn't make any sense, but I didn't do any research into it. Because much like now, I don't fucking care. I don't give a shit. I just don't want to pay for it. It's not my problem. I don't care. But yeah, it's just like, well, that was not the case at all. They wouldn't just give them Israel as like a kind gesture. First of all, the UN was completely bullied into doing it. And secondly, it's like there have been settlers there for 30 years trying to make that wasn't part of my high school history curriculum. I don't remember that part of the story coming up. Ken Burns, Pearl Harbor was an inside shot. That's pretty funny. Disney just purchased rights to the King James Bible. Good golly. Oh, my word. A Disney Bible. Haram indeed. That is haram. Oh, my word. Oh, my word. Every single textbook. Robert Maxwell. Yep. I remember even as a kid getting like another Holocaust book and being like, really? Like, I remember being like, at the time, with no reason to question this, just being like, all right, again with this, I was genuinely like annoyed. All right. So that I wasn't even necessarily going to talk about that, but your comment made me think about that, Sentient Dildo. So this, I think, is a big deal. And Mr. Fuentes was talking about this last night, and I was planning on talking about it yesterday before I was unable to do the show. But I think this is big because I will set the stage a little bit for you. If you've been noticing, oh, geez. Hello, Donnie, R57. What is cracking? What's up? I got a question. Does this guy answer anything? Sometimes, if you're fucking nice about it, pal, if you fucking show some goddamn respect and come correct, maybe. You got questions? I don't know. Lindsay, hello. Stalin's reign of terror was not in our history books either. I think I knew quite a bit about that, but I had a bit of fascination with World War II when I was a kid. But what I didn't hear about? I didn't hear about the what's it called? The ethnic cleansing of the Germans in Eastern Europe after World War II. Didn't hear anything about that. That was news to me. Didn't hear about Stalin's troops just raping women and children to death on the march towards Germany. I didn't hear that. That was left out. That was not part of the story. But anyway, so set the stage. If you guys may remember, recently, Mr. Nick Fuentes has been quite the controversial figure. I've only recently acquainted with the young man. I happen to be a fan now. Really like his stuff. I watch his podcast now. Not every day, but a lot. And he did Tucker Carlson. Well, he did Patrick Bet-David. He did Dave Smith. And then he did Tucker Carlson, the most fateful interview, which basically made him, they wanted to make Tucker Carlson the most influential conservative voice of the past 10, 15 years. They want to make him persona non grata, which kind of worked. Sorry. It didn't work, but there was an effective media campaign to try to get rid of him, to try to not talk to him, to not have anyone talk to him. He's not MAGA. Get out of the coalition. You're not part of this conversation anymore. And I was like, I think everyone was just like, what are you even fucking talking about? So basically it devolved into this whole civil war. MAGA, doesn't need Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's not part of this coalition. Get out. If you support him, you're anti-Semitic, you hate America, you're not MAGA, but back and forth. And basically, it was kind of devolving into this thing where it was like, there was this rhetoric going around about Tucker Carlson being the most dangerous anti-Semite in the world or in the country, which is just insane. But that's what happens when you criticize Israel. You're immediately an anti-Semite. And basically, it was all kind of using this shield that you're not MAGA if you like Tucker, which is crazy because he's significantly one of the most influential guys on that side. But this all came to a head the other day. So now that the stage is set, let me play this for you. Wait, he's got a question. Oh, you asked a question, and you know what? I'm a good man, so I'll answer. Do you think both sides of politics are guilty in the Epstein stuff? Everyone going down. That's why. Listen, can we work on the grammar a little bit here? You think both sides of politics are guilty in the Epstein stuff, like everyone going down. That's why they hide in it so much. Donnie, listen, please proofread. Yes, both sides are guilty. I'm not sure what the question is, really. I actually don't know what you're asking. You please feel free to ask again, but I don't know what the hell you're saying. So bet you didn't know about American soldiers raping French women's either. That never happened. Don't you dare besmirch our brave fighting men who went over there and liberated you fucking queefy Europeans who couldn't do it for yourselves. Okay, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know that, but that's probably true. Okay, so like I said, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes. Tucker's not MAGA. Nick Fuentes is, the devil, blah, blah. Here we go. This is the President Donald Trump weighing in on this very subject.
A friendly interview with anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson. What role do you think Tucker Carlson should play in the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward?
Well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years. I think he's good. We've had some good interviews. I did an interview with him. We had 300 million hits. You know that. Look, I can't tell him. Will you let me finish my statement? You are the worst. You're with Bloomberg, right?
Bloomberg.
You are the worst.
You're
I don't
the
know
worst.
why they even have you. We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
Carlson recently had a...
And coincidentally, my entire X feed stopped being anti-Nick Fuentes propaganda. All of a sudden, the whatever that organized campaign to just fill my feed for weeks with nothing but propagandists telling me how evil Tucker Carlson is and how evil Nick Fuentes is and all this stuff and this divide and the Heritage Foundation walking back their comments and people putting up videos trying to tell young groypers how to really think. That's all gone. I got to give the man credit for that. That was fucking awesome. You know how easy it would have been or how tempting it may have been to have just sat there and said, he's the worst, and just shit on him. And he didn't. And that was smart, dude. He said, I don't know much about Nick Fuentes. And that might be true. I mean, he had him at the White House that one time. Seemed like an interesting guy, or an interesting conversation. I mean, but it's totally fair that Trump doesn't actually know who he was, but to stand firm and say, no, Tucker can talk whoever he wants, get the word out, let the people decide is like based, dude. That is like, because I think all that propaganda for all those weeks was leading to, let's get this to Trump. Let's try to trick the populace, and that this is some kind of consensus that people have, even though it isn't. You can just clearly tell by the numbers on the podcast that Ben Shapiro does and Mark Levin does versus Tucker. It's like, it's not even close. Tucker's the biggest voice, but probably tenfold. But I think it was all leading to get Trump to disavow Tucker so that they could kind of keep control of the narrative and keep control of the movement. And that failed. Good. That's the thing I will say about Trump. You're not going to bully him into doing something he doesn't want to do. Unless, of course, it's covering up the Epstein files. But, okay. Matt, he was asking you if you think both political parties are guilty of being in the Epstein files, and that's why they were hiding it. Well, we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about that. Actually, we can talk about that right now. Being centrist is a lost cause and completely impotent. Oh, yeah. I don't even know centrist anymore. I think that was okay. I will put out an olive branch out to the centrist. Hello, that 70s rock fan. Good to see you, sir. What's cracking, brother? I haven't seen you in a while, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing real well. I will give an olive branch to the centrist. I think, look, there's plenty of pussies who are way too They were too cowardly. They had too many feisty women in their lives to allow their minds to open up to the fact, let's not even talk about what Trump's doing right now, just in the concept of coming over to the right or being a Republican or voting for Trump or anything like that. Like, plenty of pussies. Those guys don't count. I will say this though, and it was something that I kind of remembered, is that if you're my age, right? If you're 40, the Republicans were George W. Bush, right? Or even like John McCain. And they, led us into two wars that were the longest in our history, got how many of our own men killed and traumatized, and spent how many trillions of dollars, destroyed our kind of belief in ourselves, our kind of noble spirit that we thought of ourselves as Americans. And that is all, not all, but there was a perception that it was squarely on the shoulders of the Republicans, and especially kind of like the old school, like neocons and stuff. I can understand being like the type of person who looks at the left and just being like, this is all absolutely fucking nuts. Obama was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a total liar, total failure, false prophet, fake president. But then still having that in the back of your mind and being like, yeah, but those are the guys who got us into Iraq. Those are the guys who dragged out Afghanistan and turned it into hunting Al-Qaeda, into regime change with the Taliban, which they all failed. I don't respect it. Like, if you're like politically centrist, meaning it's just like, you're probably just more afraid of offending people who want to get into a fight about it and get offended. That's not honorable. But I can also understand not supporting the Republican Party, because it's just kind of like, and you're seeing it now. You're like, oh, this is who you guys really are. You may say you care about young men and trans shit and DEI, but really what you want is power so you can go to war with whomever for whatever reason. And I don't quite understand why that is so many Republicans' priority. So my olive branch to the centrist is, I understand. The truth is, quit being a pussy and take a stand. But I kind of understand it a little bit. All right. So Epstein files. So this was pretty big. This is pretty friggin' huge, actually. I think, I think this is huge. So the reason I chose the thumbnail for today that I did is that this is Massey's bill. This is Thomas Massey's bill. He is, a lot of people consider him to be like the most patriotic, the most forthright, kind of stalwart, good conservative, in the sense that he really does care about liberty. He does care about the United States of America. He is consistent. He tends to vote with his conscience when it comes to the Constitution. I think he said some things in the past that I disagree with pretty firmly. He was kind of pro-immigration type shit, like open borders type, that kind of gay libertarian thing. Because that's the thing about the libertarians. They're not a unified collection of thoughts. There are some really good, especially foreign policy libertarians like Dave Smith, like Scott Horton. Those types of guys are really sharp about that type of stuff. They're very, very well educated, and they have really good ideas. Then you find these libertarians who are literally hedonistic anarchists who don't want any rules at all. They don't believe in laws. They're oh, they found a way for them to be even as degenerate and free of consequence as possible. And so therefore they call themselves libertarians, or they're just really, really ultra woke. So it is a weird ideology at times. And sometimes it's kind of you're ugh, I don't agree with that. But with this particular issue, especially, Thomas Massey introduced this bill, did not let this issue go, grabbed onto it like a fucking pit bull and ran with it, and made what I think was a cross the aisle coalition with, what is her name? Ro Kahana. It's right there. Whom I don't even know, but they made this thing and pushed and pushed and pushed to actually get it through, and got it through, which I got to be honest is pretty much one of the most significant political accomplishments that I can remember in recent memory. And so that's why I put Massey in the thing. Massey wins because I think that's the truth. That's the truth of the situation. The one thing I will say, and this is going to the question, Sentient Dildo, did the Democrats vote against the Iraq war in 2002? I seriously doubt it. No, Democrats probably did not. They didn't. I'm sure some did, but no, the most prominent ones, Hillary Clinton, stuff like that, they didn't. But I will give the liberals of the time credit, the left wing of the country. There was lots of protests for that war. A lot of people did not want to go to that war. And I was listening to like conservative radio at the time. I was listening to like Sean Hannity and Michael Savage, and they were always talking shit about these un-American, unpatriotic people. But there were giant protests in New York City and, probably San Francisco. There were always lots and lots of hundreds of thousands of people who were saying, no, this is wrong from the start. So what I mean to say maybe is the left. I feel like there's a lot more political nuance in this country now than there was 20 years ago. So I will just say it kind of came down to just like the left and the right. There's only two sides. But the left, I think, gets more credit for back then for being against the war. Now the Democrats, no, but like the left. So I just feel like the right, being the Republicans, gets more of the blame for the Iraq war. And I think that's fair. Rokahana, I remember for 10 years ago, he was one of those get money out of politics progressives, like an actually decent progressive. Man, okay, that's possible. But this goes through the House of Representatives with a 427-1 vote. That's unprecedented. Maybe it's precedented, but I don't think I can remember a bill in recent memory that was that one side. Like that's almost everybody except for one guy from Louisiana for some reason. I have no idea what the hell that guy was thinking, but that's everybody. I mean, that's literally everybody. Was it like 5 no votes? So 5 people like abstained and one guy said no. Do you think that when they do that, that means we're going to get everything we want? That to me is suspicious. If it eked out a win, like obviously I'd still give it to Massey, but if it eked out a win, I'd be more confident that something's going to come out of this. But almost no, Sentient Dildo, I almost feel like everyone on both sides somehow got assurances that no, there's no way anything all that detrimental, except for maybe a few sacrificial lambs, are really going to get got. I don't think anyone on the high level of the right or the left is going to get got. And I do think, yes, the truth of the matter is, yes, both people from the left, from the right, from private business, people from other countries are all implicated. And if we were ever to get that, that would change the landscape in American politics forever. But I don't think we're going to get that. I don't know what we're going to get. I mean, this is exciting. I think this is really interesting, but we thought we were going to get them back in February and we got binders and influencers with, with even less information than we already had, with like flight logs and stuff with shit redacted that we already knew. So what the fuck was that? And like, what is this going to look like? I don't know. I think I agree. I think it's very fishy. I think this is more fishy. Yep, we all agreed. And the Senate pre-agreed. So I think it already passed in the Senate. That is way more suspicious, I think. I don't think we're going to get shit out of this, unfortunately. Because why would they all agree? Their constituents or they themselves have things to lose with the Epstein files getting released. And they're all just like, nope, that's great. No problem. It's like, really? Only one guy has a problem with it? Okay. But, okay. This is something related to that story. This is something that Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said. And then I have another clip from another creator, another voice in this political sphere. But this was something that a lot of people latched onto. They're like, what was that? What did you just, what was that last part you just said?
All right. Number 5, national security concerns. Okay. The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest and always has rested with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies, in intelligence agencies. All right?
What? What'd you just say? Mike, you're not supposed to give away that you know it's an intelligence op, buddy. You guys are supposed to be like, oh, this is all just news to us. Gee whiz, we don't know. So you're confessing that it was Epstein was intelligence? You're saying that now out loud to the public? And then you are cautioning that maybe it all shouldn't get released because it's intelligence? Mike, the question is, the problem we have, why is a underage blackmail sex ring being used by our government and our intelligence agencies to blackmail powerful people? Okay? We want all that out. Those are exactly the things that we want to see for those exact reasons. What the fuck? I don't understand that. What kind of a comment is that? Might compromise our intelligence agencies. Good. That's the point. That's exactly the point, Mr. Johnson. That's precisely what we want to have happen. What are you talking about, man? It's like, huh? What? What are you saying? What's up, Listless? How you doing? How you doing? Being that rich, you think you could afford a better toupee? Yeah, that's pretty funny. And then so this broke yesterday. I hate that you're no, dude, I call them freedom fries. I call them freedom fries because I love America. Now let's go nuke a country that's got nothing to do with us for Israel. That's how patriotic I am. I'm gonna sign up to go slaughter people in another country that I don't even know on a map because Israel doesn't want them around. I'm a patriot. This broke yesterday, and I was watching Nick Fuentes' show last night, and he had something similar to say, which I think maybe put it even better. But it was like, I was like, yeah, that, man. Give me 1 second. Let me scrub to it. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I can't put the kibosh on a running blackmail machine. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like that. I think is like the point. I think that's why this whole thing is so fishy and suspicious that they're all like, yeah, we'll all let it out. It's like, you will? Why? I think it's because they know nothing's going to come out. But this is what Fuentes was saying to a similar comment, not the same comment, but something else that Mike Johnson had said.
Fit triangulating between these three countries, which is a very conspicuous triangle. And Mike Johnson says we cannot release all the files pertaining to this situation because it might permanently damage the political system. Why? Because it might undermine its legitimacy and credibility. If we found out that the government was being controlled using blackmail and bribery, because it would undermine confidence in our government, in our democracy. If we learned that our civilian elected leaders were not answering to the will of the people, but were actually being controlled by foreign governments, intel agencies, that our tax money, that our government, our military, our regulations are actually under the control of shadowy forces that are engaged in sexual trafficking and blackmail, working for God only knows who? Why would we want to maintain a political order based on that? That's sort of the whole point. We want this to destroy the political system. Were we not clear about that? That's the whole point. That's the whole point, by the way, of the Trump movement. The political system is not working for the people. The political system is not answerable or accountable to the people because the political system is corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the point, man. That's what we were sold. That was the whole thing. I mean, I know drain the swamp is more like a 2016 Trump thing that he was saying, but that's why I voted. That's what I believed in. It was just back in, like, you know, he got in January, right? And I was even kind of being like, guys, fucking slow down. It's been a few months. You guys are pretty impatient. But you look around at all this stuff, and it's just like swamp, very much intact. You know, like America's integrity as a nation, very much in question. And then, you know, you get things like 50-year mortgages, and you're like, that's what you're offering? Are you fucking serious? You know, like we've got, you know, Tulsi Gabbard comes out and they're like, Obama committed treason. You know, what happened with that? Nothing. Not a thing. And this whole Epstein thing, you know, which I've like, you know, was like how it was sold to me, right? It was like the whole thing is we were gonna get to the bottom of it. We were gonna finally release it. No more bullshit, no more hiding. You know, we're gonna tell you about it. And then it was like, oh, well, we kind of rushed it and botched it by giving you, you know, information you already had. But don't worry, the information's on the way. Pam Bondi's got truckloads of data, truckloads of papers she's got to release. Kash Patel goes on, you know, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are telling it, no, I mean, like, it's a lot. And, you know, once I'm allowed to release it, I'll release it, and it'll come out. There's all this stuff. And then Trump's like, what, are you guys are still talking about that? I mean, that's Democrat hoax. And you're like, what? No, that's not the truth at all. We want the information. You told us we were going to get this. This was like one of the big reasons why you won. This was the whole point, man. I thought, you know, the good guys were in charge for once. So we were actually going to do something about this rot that exists in our government. And I guess perhaps, you know, the $100 or $200 million that Marian Adelson gave him overruled that. I don't know. And Mike Johnson's saying it's like, oh, it's going to affect intelligence operations. Good. We want to know that that's going on. We want to know that our tax dollars are paying for that. We want, you know, names, man, and give them to us. This is crazy. It's like unbelievable. Like this kind of like the arrogance to say that about, you know, it's like, well, you know, it's these other intelligence operations. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Why is this something this country was ever doing? And why aren't all of you tirelessly working to make sure whoever did it is exposed and that it never happens again? What type of wars are we fighting where that's the type of shit we have to do to people? What the fuck is going on? We want answers. We demand them. It's like, this whole thing is crazy. It's just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Like, and then, you know, it's like they put it off and put it off and put it off. And they're like, okay, I guess, you know, if the entire Congress is going to go against me, I guess I'll give it to you. It's like, Jesus, man, who are you? Who is the guy I voted for? We were just so excited just a few months ago. We were pumped, you know, everything was, you know, coming up Millhouse. And I don't know. Listless. Surprised everyone doesn't have whiplash from the sheer number of distractions from every side. I don't even know. I mean, are these distractions? Like, it's just the amount of stuff that happens every day. It's crazy. It's a flood. It's a constant flood. It's so much information. It's so many things that happen. I don't know. I'm really curious about this. Don't condescend to me like a leftist. I know, but I mean, what are you going to just give up and black pill and have no hope in the future? No hope in anybody? No belief? No optimism? Just doom and gloom? No, sir. Not me. No. We're going to get this right eventually. We're going to get this right if it kills us all. Ike and Jones have been talking about Epstein for decades, but they're crazy. They don't do themselves a lot of favors. Look, I do like Alex Jones, but I remember like when I listened to him when he was when it was free he was allowed to be on YouTube, and I would watch like InfoWars. The thing is, he says so many things at once with such conviction, and he's always right. He's always got it figured out. He's always like right on the edge of something big, and it's like, but he doesn't really like hold himself accountable to the things he got wrong, or he doesn't like, it's just like a fucking avalanche of information and talking points, and it's like in there somewhere he's right about some stuff, but it's just kind of like it's hard for me to use him as a source of information. I find him interesting and everything, but I think he would do himself some more favors if he chilled the fuck out sometimes, and kind of like counted his wins a little, had a little bit more organization in like what he's talking about. But listless. It's not unique to the U.S. though. It's everywhere. Most Western governments are organized crime rings. I mean, most governments, period. Right? They're gangsters. It's why the libertarians make a lot of great points about concentrated power and the monopoly on violence. I think they're right about a lot of this. And they've been, steadfast on a lot of things that Americans are starting to come around to, especially foreign policy. It is not untrue that America has been voting against the war party, at least as they thought, since Obama won in 2008. That was the point. That's why that was one of the biggest reasons Obama got elected. It's like it was about race, but it was also about change. I mean, that was the idea. I mean, and that's what these presidents have been about. Obama was supposed to represent change. It was supposed to be a departure from the norm, from where we were, and to stop getting in these needless wars. And what are we doing in Guantanamo? We're torturing people? Like, what? This is not who America is. So, this guy's supposed to save it. Now, that guy was the biggest charlatan, I think, in political history, at least in the 20th, well, it's the 21st century, but at least in the past, 100 years. Because he was, not only did he not do any of that, he actually made it a lot worse in a lot of different ways. I mean, literally, we were helping Al-Qaeda at certain points. I mean, we were like helping like Al-Qaeda like overthrow Syria. And now like that guy who runs Syria now, he's a former Al-Qaeda guy. And it's like, that's way to go, Obama, way to end the wars. What the fuck? And then Trump won was a response to Obama's bullshit. And we don't want Hillary Clinton in because it's just going to keep the war party going. And then, Biden, if he even got elected, I'm not convinced. But if he actually did, maybe that was a lot of people's desperation return to normalcy. But that even doesn't make any sense to me. But, whatever. But then this Trump iteration as well was supposed to be an end to this shit. We don't want it. The American people do not want it. Universally. Almost universally, we don't want all these foreign war entanglements. We don't want to keep spiraling our debt out of control. Yet no matter who we vote for, we end up with the same shit. It's fucking crazy. If you don't believe in one of the two parties, you believe in nothing. That's not what I'm saying at all. That isn't what I'm saying. I believe in the man. If it wasn't Trump, I don't think I would have voted for him. If it was just some milquetoast, boring Republican, I don't think I would have gone for it. Trump seemed different. And he was different. Let's be honest. He was the Teflon Don. He didn't need the money. He didn't need, a lot of these presidents like Obama, Clinton, they get giant payouts, giant book deals, giant speaking engagements. They make money off this shit. He didn't need it. He didn't need to take the money the way like these other presidents did. It wasn't his, he didn't need it. He was like, could literally go in there and serve. He had the opportunity to do it correctly. So, and it seemed plausible, he fucking got shot, you know what I mean? And still like pops up, fight, still goes, gets, I mean, they tried to lock him up, right? They tried to fucking put him in jail with all those felony counts, cancel him from every single, this all just happened. It's like, I don't know. Why would a person persevere through all that just to get the power back? It's like, he already was powerful. He's a billionaire. One of the most influential billionaires in the world. I don't know. I believed. And part of me still does. I'm not off like fuck this guy, it's over. But there's just a lot of reframing of expectations that's gone on. And I think you got to be honest about that. If you're going to be honest with yourself, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It's like, it's hard to, why do we need all the H-1Bs? Why? Do we really need them? Is there no other solution? I thought you're the anti-immigration president. Why are you continuing this to go? I don't know. They all go in with a six-figure salary and leave with millions. Yeah. Well, that's why I said Trump was different, because he didn't need it. I'm in Canada now, so it's kind of real for me right now. Sorry. Yeah, I bet, dude. Sorry. Rip Canada. Yeah, it was, you guys had a good run. Sorry. I don't know what you guys are going to need a war. I feel really bad for Canada. Sorry. Essential Dildo, that's Fantasyland. Power always centralizes. It's the nature of power. Smart lolberts like Hop know this, and that's why they say a monarchy is preferable to a democracy if you believe in small government. I mean, this country had a time where it had a relatively small government. I mean, the federal government was a very limited thing before the Civil War, but even after the Civil War, it's only really been since was it Hoover? That really it started to grow. Federal Reserve, income tax, and then the war party was born in World War II, the military industrial complex. Eisenhower, that was his big warning when he left office. It's not impossible. It might be impossible to retrieve, but it's not impossible to run a country. It's certainly not impossible to run a powerful, wealthy country like the America with a small government. I mean, the government gets bigger and bigger every year. Well, what was it when it was 20% smaller or 30% smaller or 40% smaller? What was a country in fucking shambles? Were we all just scraping up dirt to get something? No, everything was relatively fine. So no, we absolutely can do it. It's just, we don't, and we need to walk it back. And I don't know how you do that. If it's not Trump, I don't know how you do it. I really don't, because he seemed to be the only guy who was just completely untethered and could do whatever he wanted, and he didn't need to answer to anybody except the base, the people. And now even that, it seems like that's not, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know. I'd rather have a king legit right now where I am. Yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, that's what Nick Fuentes advocates for. He's he wants a benevolent tyrant who just sort of does the right thing with a supreme amount of power. I don't know how do you do that? I mean, they call Trump a fucking fascist because he wants to, deport the illegals. How do you? I don't know. That's actually, I was looking at Twitter earlier, and Razor Fist, he's a smart guy. I like him. But he is still one of these guys who's just all in on Trump, trust the plan. And I wish I could be like that. I kind of want to be like that. I would love to just be nope, it's all going to work out. Everything's fine. We keep catching wins. Don't be a pussy. Be that would be tight, but I just don't see that. There's no walking it back, and your government has slowly but steadily growing from the start. I mean, that's certainly the truth. And he says, any other democracy. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been the reality. I mean, you can't argue with that. But I feel like the dramatic changes happened. Once states' rights were not a thing, once we weren't really small countries anymore, I think a lot of power got centralized in the federal government. And then after Hoover, I think it all that was sort of the end of the sort of republic that this country is supposed to be. Trump is okay on nationalism, but we need a guy that's going to want to protect the shit that he has, and this is rare these days. Bar the gates, raise the standards, man the walls. Based. Fuck yeah. Let's go. Well, this is about immigration, and this was just an interesting thing that Razor Fist was sharing. And then I do have another topic I prepared for that I want to cover, because after we'll watch this little news clip.
First at 4, we are learning new details about how the presence of Border Patrol in the Queen City is impacting learning at the area's largest school district. For the second day in a row, students at several schools walked out in protest of the Border Patrol deployment here in Charlotte. But an educator now tells us that's not the main reason classrooms are empty. Queen City News anchor Will Lewis spoke with the teacher who says the uptick in absences is a direct result of Operation Charlotte's Web.
David Gillespie says the last 24 hours have been tough.
I don't represent.
Real quick, guys, just a quick guess. First instincts, look at that fella sitting there. He's a teacher. Where do you feel his political heart lies? You have nothing but to go on but his face and that ridiculous hair. What do you think? What are your instincts, folks? You know what? We're going to find out by the end of this video. So put your guesses in the chat and we'll find out.
The CMS district, nor my school.
But he's seen what 2 days of Customs and Border Patrol agents taking more than 130 people into custody
I'm just sharing my opinion as a teacher in the Charlotte area.
does to students.
My homeroom class typically has 16 students in it. We had 4.
District-wide, there are 145,030 students enrolled in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. On Monday, 30,399 were absent. 28,100.
30,000 of what they say, 120,000? Is that what they said? Oh, 150,000. Okay. 145. That is still a giant fucking percentage. 30,000 kids out of 145,000, kids come from families that you could probably likely deduce are from illegals. How did they even get in the school? Don't you need birth certificates or paperwork? Something kind of official? I'm not saying, fuck these kids like callously, but this is the type of stuff that is a problem. Like, these are publicly funded schools that now have to allocate resources to 28,000 unexcused absences, 28,000 kids, who don't fucking pay taxes. Why aren't, that's the thing that drives me nuts about liberals who are like pro illegal immigration. It's like, all you ever fucking talk about is pay your fair share, pay your fair share. Well, what about these families? Why is paying for their education on your shoulders or my shoulders or my parents' family shoulders? Why is that their fucking responsibility? Pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. They're probably, their answer would be, well, we should just naturalize them. It's like, of course, that isn't going to work. Of course, you can't just naturalize tens of millions of people and expect to maintain your way of life. Obviously, which we are entitled to. That's not selfish. That's not, arrogance or white supremacy. That we are entitled to our way of life. And it's stuff like this where it's just like 30,000 kids just didn't show up.
99 were absent. 28,136 unexcused. While CMS doesn't break down the numbers by ethnic origin, Gillespie, a multilingual teacher, did.
Children of parents from Angola, from Vietnam, but the students whose parents come from Latin American countries.
Well, that's the point, Joe. That's what's so frustrating to me is it's just kind of like, that's not the point. Like, fair share. More taxes is not going to solve the problem, dude. You could drain the bank accounts of every billionaire in this country and it wouldn't even pay for the budget for a single year. Obviously, more taxes isn't the problems, you fucking retards. It's all the government spending. That's one of the things I think that's so frustrating about the failures of the Trump administration is what the fuck happened to Doge, man? Remember Doge? The chainsaw? We were going to cut the bureaucracy. We had, the autism power of Elon and his army of little autists going through the accounting. Remember they uncovered all that crazy shit with the retirement files that were in some big mine with an old mine shaft from the 50s? We're all like, what the hell has this government been doing? Like, I was just on the phone with a bank today, and they were telling me, as casually, they were telling me that like the wire transfer system that banks use, apparently it's government regulated, hasn't changed since the 70s. The 70s, as in the 1970s, as in 55 years ago. We haven't changed the fucking system. Do you recognize how crazily different technology has moved since the 70s? PCs weren't a thing, let alone a fucking iPhone. Yet we still let the government run our financial institutions or that particular technology. And we're just not going to change it. Just going to keep it as it is. Dude. Yes. COBOL. Exactly. Low spec. Exactly. And it's like, what happened to all that, bro? I thought we were getting like a new updated, man, a new patch, a brand new 2.0 United States government. Sanchadillo, Doge was a big spectacle for the voters and a way to incorporate big tech and government even more. Yeah, I mean, I guess you know that's a possibility. I'd say it doesn't seem like it worked though, because it was kicked out. I don't think we did the Doge cuts. I mean, I know they have been cutting a lot of government employees. I will say that, and that's a good thing. But like, there was all like, I remember that was one of Massey's biggest things was like, when we're redoing the budget, how come we're not going to incorporate at least the Doge cuts? We didn't ratify them into law with the CRT. And they're just like, oh, well, we'll do it next time. We'll do it next time. You think they're going to do it this time coming around with the midterms looming? You think this time they're going to do it? I doubt it. I doubt it. Do you really want your money transfers run on Windows 11? That's funny. I feel like there's got to be a better solution, listless. I mean, there's that whole crypto called XRP. That's what the entire thing is supposed to function as. It's supposed to replace that. I'm not entirely sure how, but that's what it's supposed to do.
Were the students we were missing. So that was kind of the line, even among the ML students, is that we were missing Hispanic students.
David says news of the operation reached his students well before they entered the classroom on Monday. He says those who have come back are still scared, and he's unsure if or when the other students will return.
They should be able to come there and get their education. They should be able to come there and spend time with their friends, socialize. They should feel secure.
Who gives a shit about should, buddy? They should come from a country that has a stable government, and they should come from a place that's safe so they don't need to flee. That should be the case. I shouldn't have to pay for medical expenses. I shouldn't have to pay income tax. We shouldn't do war. Okay, but all these things are realities, man. You can't just be like, well, that's what should happen. It's like, okay, man, you shouldn't be such a bitch on the news. But it's like these are the problems. These are those things that like all the intangibles that come along, all the infrastructure that's necessary to house an influx of millions of people. You're not ready. And especially in a country that has such a expensive welfare state. These are realistic concerns. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show that is so frustrating with the left, because it's like we are legitimately on the right, I think, willing to come to the table, compromise on some things, or at least have a conversation. But you guys can't give up the big ones. You can't give up the DEI. You can't give up the trans shit, and you can't give up the border. You can't give up immigration. It's just like, well, there's nothing to talk about. These are the most important issues. You can't flood our institutions with people who believe equity is real, and you crush the dominant population that also is the reason for all the prosperity you see around you. And, you can't just flood it with millions of people from different countries so that you can throw the votes forever. You just can't do that, man. And you can't let this trans ideology infect this many people. These are not compromises. We're not willing to bend on these things. You're like, well, Trump's a Nazi. You're like, all right, never mind. I guess we're on our own. What do you hold on. Banks are the embodiment of centralization. They won't use stuff like that. If there's money in it, they will. If they can make more money by making more efficient transactions, they 100% will. They don't have like integrity. But a lot of these banks, a lot of these companies, it's how they make their money is by being in bed with the government, by having like that centralized power, basically keep them in business or increase their business. I mean, I think there's this concept with like real economists where there's no such thing as like a natural monopoly. It doesn't exist. Like you can't control stuff like that if you're, enforcing laws like, cartel shit where you can't just kill your competition. But there's always going to be some kind of competition, and that's always better for the consumer or the end user. The only way these things really get kept into power is if there's some sort of government intervention that makes it illegal. You know, it's like I was listening to, I think it was Part of the Problem. It was Bernstein, Robbie Bernstein was saying, it's like, why is air traffic controlling a government job? Fantastic question. Why is air traffic control a government job? Why isn't that a private thing? Why can't the airlines sort that out themselves? I'm sure they would do a fine job. I mean, the planes are private. They're privately constructed. They don't just fall out of the sky every fucking day. So it's like, why can't they, like, why is it every time there's a government shutdown, I have trouble commuting. I have trouble flying. You know what I mean? It's all this stuff. It's that centralization. It just seems to ruin everything. You guys are saying a lot here. Hold on. Oh, there are governments that intervene heavily on any competition, any competition entering. Mine, for example. Yeah, no, it's absolutely corporate oligarchy. And the problem is, once again, the divide on the left is that I think many people on the right agree with the left about this problem. The thing is, the left, being stupid, is they're like, well, we need more government. It's like, no, you don't. You need the opposite. You need less. That will solve the problem. You do not need more. But that's their solution for everything. Socialism. It's like, oh, God.
Gillespie says these days were not in his lesson plan, but it's a lesson everyone should learn.
ICE is never going to come to the school. Border Patrol is not going to come to the school. And I think what was chilling about yesterday is that it was demonstrated that they don't have to come to the school to affect the school. They don't have to step foot on the property to impact students.
In East Charlotte, Will Lewis, Queen City.
Look, I'm not like happy that kids are suffering, but I am very unhappy that there's this many illegals in the country that percentage of students would just not show up once ICE is around. It's like, well, what does that tell you then? They come from illegal families that don't pay taxes, that don't pay into the system, but use the services and are a drag on absolutely everyone else around us. And furthermore, from a more personal note, a lot of Hispanics do not assimilate. And I don't like that. I just don't like that. This is just not your country. And that's fucked up. You know, I would never go to Bolivia or Honduras. Like, I wouldn't move there and be like, I'm not learning Spanish. What am I, an asshole? Just not adopt the customs. Be like, what the fuck? I can't get mortadella around here. Like, no, that's not the country you live in, asshole. Like, it really bugs me. You know, it's like I have neighbors. They're plenty nice people. They're really nice. They're sweet. They've invited me to their kid's birthday party and I went, and not a single person speaks English. No one. There's like 40, 50 people at this party. And I'm like, well, this is the most uncomfortable situation of my entire life. This is insane. I'm talking with people on Google Translate. I was like, I'm leaving. This sucks. But it's like, yo, you're in America, man. Make the fucking effort. Even if you speak broken English, like, what? I'm not going to be like this fucking retard. But the fact that you don't even try, it's like, that's fucked up, man. That's just rude. It's disrespectful to the host country that you likely snuck into. I got to give respect to the deep state. They've created a completely important new left and neocon new right and made them both serve the same interest. 'Twas a beautiful gambit. You know, there's people who have a theory about that, Sentient Dildo. They have they've connected some dots on who pushes these things, and they seem to connect somewhere. There's a certain transistor that connects the two. You know? You start to ask some questions. You start to, what's the word? Notice. Start to notice. That's funny, listless. Silver lining, classroom outcomes will improve. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Ethnic groups, when they have sufficient numbers, never integrate. Obviously. Why would they? Because it's hard. It's difficult. It is difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to just learn English. That's got to be fucking hard. I don't speak Spanish. And I know if I just had to, that would be extremely difficult. But so what? That's not my problem. I don't want to live somewhere where I go to a grocery store in my own neighborhood in America And I'm talking to the cashier and they just have a blank stare in their face because they don't know what the hell I'm saying. Yes, that's a real story. It's like, this is fucking crazy. This is just so crazy. It's so arrogant. It's just, I mean, you know, the French are right to be that rude to outsiders who don't speak their language. Good. Maintain your principles. Keep your walls up. It's fucking ridiculous. Okay. So that was that. I'll tell you what, you know, I noticed, like I said, about the whole Tucker and Nick Fuentes Trump thing, where it just stopped. My entire algorithm stopped with all. I mean, it was exhausting, dude. Because I go on X a lot. I like X. I really do. And I think it's a great source for information. It's a great source for news. You know, it's a great source for like you follow the right accounts. You get good opinion, good insight. I do like X a lot. But it was exhausting to use because all I was getting was like, Tucker's the worst anti-Semite. Nick Fuentes is this, you know, I mean, it was just every single day. And it was sick. It was sick because, like, you know, all the comments were always loaded with, you know, like complete rejection of the narratives, of the Zionist narrative, just completely rejected. So that was kind of nice, but it was exhausting to use the platform. I was like, this is everything I'm going to get. Well, now that that's stopped, today was not a good day for Zionist propaganda. It was not. There were a bunch of L's going around, and we're going to play a few of them. What's up, Zax? Hello, hello, hello. How you doing, sir? You know, it's funny. Such a dildo says, oh, no, on the positive side, Matt, I bought an SP5, lol. Now, I saw that being a nerd as PS5 that you misspelled. And then I'm like, oh, no, it's probably a pistol. It's probably some kind of a firearm. I don't know what an SP5 is, but I'm going to quickly Google it. No way. Really? You bought that? That's sick. Just put that on the screen for everybody. That is cool. Yo, that rules, dude. That's what the bad guys were using in Die Hard. Bro, I'm such a nerd. Like, every time I go to like the gun range or the gun store, I'm like, oh, that's the gun John McClane used, and I want to buy it. Yeah, that's so cool. It's not full auto, is it? I don't know. What in your fucking war-torn part of the world probably is. You probably have like former Soviet ammunition or something like that. You probably have a fucking anti-aircraft gun in your backyard. That is fucking cool, though. That is very cool. It's hard to, I mean, movies are great marketing for guns, man. They really, really are. So sick. Got a great deal because the store owner is getting divorced. He needs the money. Dude, there's a gunsmith in town. He's holding my pistol hostage. My uncle, when he died, he gave me this old pistol that he had. And I wanted to get it repaired. And he's had it for months, this gunsmith. And I'm just like, dude, how hard is this to get this part in? I know it's an old gun, but Jesus, isn't that what you do? Isn't this your job? I want that gun back, man. I haven't even gotten to fire it yet. I bought all this ammunition for it. And I had to buy special ammunition because it's an old gun. And it only takes like 4440 Winchester, but it has to be a cowboy load because this particular pistol is so old that when it was manufactured, it used black powder. So if I use like the new powder, it might destroy the gun. So I got to buy these old cartridges, which I did. And yet I still haven't had a chance to fire this gun. Oh, not full auto? Yeah, I didn't feel like, I mean, yeah. Okay. It's the civilian version of the MP5. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I'm scared that you even have a gun, to be completely fair, let alone having a full auto. We're like, oh no. A coup was started in Croatia. He's screaming ANCAP. Listen, speaking of that, there's a tiny glimmer of light in Canada as the gun buyback they have been trying for years completely fell apart. Based, people aren't going to part with what they have left. Fuck yeah, good. I know. I swear to God, I want to start like a smuggling operation to like Canada and like Europe, you know, to help them fight against their own governments. I'm just kidding, YouTube. But it's like I just feel like bad. I'm like, oh my God, these countries, man. Like we have it rough. You guys are falling apart. That uncle's gun is gone for social justice. I hope not. All right. So yes, it was a very bad day for Israel propagandists. It's a really bad day, man. There were so many clips going around that are just horrible. This one is from the comedian Roseanne Barr. Let's see here.
I don't know that if America's turning on Israel, then America deserves what's going to happen to them for it.
It'll be worse for America than Israel.
It will, because Israel will just move on to India and other countries, and America will fall.
Not just that, the sleeper cells.
America will fall, and that's what they want. I mean, that is what they want, is that the constitutional republic of the United States for America will fall. But I think Trump sees that America has to be independent of the British Empire too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think.
Sorry. Just a lot just happened there. There's many things were just thrown at me. What? Doesn't that sound more like a threat? That more sounds like if you're gonna turn your back on Israel, we'll destroy you. That's kind of the impression that I got. Like, how does our like way more military resources that don't serve our interests being deployed over there? Let's not even talk about the aid, but just the military bases that are over there that are there almost expressly to combat like Israel's enemies in the Middle East. Also they serve as like, launching pads for, whatever conflicts we want to get involved in. But I mean, like, let's be honest, that's a significant reason why we have all those military resources there. All the foreign aid that we give. How, if we stopped doing that, would that make America fall? Not only would it improve our standing in the world, probably engender better deals with Middle Eastern countries with the oil deals that we already have. It probably actually help us. But I don't see how, not only would it not hurt us, that we would fall. Sorry. What? What was that? That sounds like a threat to me.
The sleeper cells.
America will fall, and that's what they want. I mean, that is what they want.
I will speak for someone who does not support Israel. That is not what I want. It's actually quite the opposite of what I want. I think this, as Cotton Ministry says, it's a parasite. That's what I think. And I think if we get rid of that parasite, we'll be far, far healthier. That is the craziest cope I've ever heard in my life.
That the constitutional republic of the United States for America will fall. But I think Trump sees that America has to be independent of the British Empire too. Mm-hmm.
What? It's not 1776, Roseanne. What are you talking about? How are we dependent on the British Empire? Does anyone actually know what she's talking about there? Is there something about geopolitics that I don't understand as far as us being related to being somehow dependent? I feel like it's probably the other way around, if anything. If either nation is dependent, I feel like England's probably more dependent on us than anything. I mean, our military presence alone, our contributions to NATO alone, I don't understand that. What is she talking about? Does anyone even know? Like, I would genuinely be curious, like, I don't know what she's talking about at all. Senjadillo is saying, whatever she's saying is Israel will release the Epstein files if you don't heal. Okay. It's like, well, I guess go ahead, but if you have them, you're implicated. She means Pakistan. How does she mean Pakistan? What do you mean? We don't need dirty Saudi oil either, to be fair. North America should be completely energy independent. I did hear that Trump pulled some energy deal today and actually is going to increase our nuclear production, which is good. This is what we should have been doing for a very long time. And I'm very glad to hear that. We're only dependent on their intelligence services. I mean, yeah, probably. I still feel like we're going to be okay. I still feel like we'll be fine. You know what? I'm willing to risk it. What's up, Shield Wall? How you doing? We were just watching some of the worst Zionist propaganda. let's finish up with Roseanne's clip here. We got a few more. A lot of L's going out today.
I think that's Israel's independence too, that
Yeah.
we're all separated from that.
Yeah.
And that's the octopus. And we're all separated from that. I don't know that if America's
I don't know what the hell she's talking about. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard anyone say. I was like, sorry, how are we? I think you just misspoke and you meant Israel would fall because you get all these billions every year of military aid and financial assistance and loans you don't have to pay back. I think we'd be a lot better off without you. And if you want to go to India, knock yourself out. That sounds like a win-win. So yeah, go for it. Go for it. Matt, have you heard about Beitar? Beitar. I don't think I have. I don't know what I don't know what Beitar is. No, I don't even have a clever joke for that. Is a revisionist Zionist youth movement. Oh. I've heard Jabotinsky before. I've heard of Zev Jabotinsky. I've heard of his name. Was he one of the more aggressive, like violent Zionists? Because I know that like in the beginning of the country, there was kind of a split. There were more like Zionists who were like, no, we should live well alongside these people. It is their land. We shouldn't just kill them. And then there were the other ones who were like, wipe them the fuck out. Every acre. They had like just take more, take more, take more. Are they the ones who are in the West Bank right now, massacring the civilians who live there, chasing them off the land? But I've heard of Zev Jabotinsky before, so some Jewish dude made a documentary about them. I'm sure they're wonderful, wonderful people. I just keep seeing this the shining beacon of light. There's this thing going around X. This is kind of fucked up, actually, with X, where it's like X will translate every language except for Hebrew. It'll translate every other language. And it used to, it's not like it was incapable of translating Hebrew. They just stopped translating Hebrew. And the reason is because there were some really horrific things coming out of Israel Twitter talking about, massacring everyone in Gaza and the Palestinians aren't humans. There was an IDF soldier saying he just loves killing people. So I guess that was bad propaganda. Once again, it's not propaganda. These aren't lies. These are truths you just don't like us to acknowledge. That's the thing. It's like if any of this was bullshit, you'd see them take on the subjects as bullshit. They would say, "No, this is bullshit. Here's the lie. Here's the truth." They're just like, you're not even supposed to know that. Don't look at that, Goy. It's like, we're going to keep looking at it, and there's nothing you could do. West Bank was, you mean Judea and Samaria? What are you saying? Jesus, listless. The West Bank? Listen to you. Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, it's all fraudulent, the whole thing. Well, I would say, look, the thing about the conversation and the thing about propaganda and media, right, is I think, you shouldn't be left to make up your own mind. If there is what appears to be a genocide going on, really, you just need that to be framed properly. You really shouldn't be coming to those conclusions naturally on your own. It's really not your place. And to help underscore this point is Sarah Hurwitz. She argues she's going to make this argument at the Jewish Federation of North America. This is her take on this said situation. I got to be honest, I don't see any flaws in her logic.
I think that since October 7th, but really before then, there have been huge shifts in America on how people think about Jews and Israel. And I think that is especially true of young people. So
Could you imagine? What could have possibly changed people's perception? Was it the fact that we watched you commit a genocide that we paid for, and then you accused us of being anti-Semites if we called it what it was? I wonder if that had anything to do with people's perception of Israel. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Now wrestling with a new, I think, generational divide here. And I think that's particularly true in that social media is now our source of media. And this, it used to be that the media you got in America was American media, and it was pretty mainstream.
It was propaganda, is what she means to say. is it was well-curated propaganda where you were supposed to think a certain conclusion. And we did. We did. We absolutely did draw the conclusions that were necessary to keep this unholy project alive. The thing is, it's now decentralized. Well, I'll let her talk about it because she's, boy, what a wordsmith.
So it generally didn't express extreme anti-Israel views. You had to go to a pretty weird bookstore to find global media and fringe media. But today we have social media, which is a global medium, right? It is shaped, its algorithms are shaped by billions of people worldwide who don't really love Jews. And so while in the 90s,
you see how they always do that? They always pull that little trickaroo, that little switcheroo there. If you have a problem with Israel, you have a problem with Jews. And then if Nick Fuentes says something like the Jews or world Jewry, where he's an anti-Semite, you're the one who couched the two. You're the one who refused to allow anyone to make the distinguishment. I don't know, man. I don't know what you want. I mean, you basically just want us to leave you alone while you commit a genocide. And I got to be honest, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Yeah, we used to control information. We're losing it now. We need to fix that. It gets worse than that.
1990s, a young person probably wasn't going to find Al Jazeera or someone like Nick Fuentes. Today, those media outlets find them. They find them on their phones. It's also this increasingly post-literate media.
Also point out, they never talk about a specific thing that is incorrect, right? It's just that you're exposed to it. The implication is that it's wrong, but they never ever point out what's wrong about it, other than they criticize Israel. That is the problem. That's the flaw, apparently. It's like there's never like they say this point, and we know that this particular point is wrong because of this. They never, ever do that. They would do that with Dave Smith with the whole Douglas Murray debate. They kept trying to be like, he lost, he did this. It's just, what did he, how, where, on what? And they never have a single point.
Yeah. Less and less text, more and more videos. So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza. And this is why so many of us can't have a sane conversation with younger Jews, because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage.
Yeah! Yes! 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 Yes, because the carnage is wrong. Because the carnage is bad. She's saying it like it's not the carnage that's wrong. It's the fact that they saw it. Yes. Hello, Leslie. We're just talking about Israeli propaganda. But do you hear that framing? Like, how hilarious is that? It's like, I can't have a rational conversation with you. You're accusing me of a genocide. It's like, you're committing a genocide. That's what you're doing over there. We just know now. We can see it. It's like crazy.
So I want to give data and information and facts and arguments, and they are just seeing in their minds carnage, and I sound obscene.
She sounds obscene. That's the problem. She sounds obscene. Never, zero self-reflection, zero self-awareness. Maybe you are, you crazy bitch. Maybe you are obscene. Maybe you're have a limitless, you've written yourself a mental blank check to do whatever you want to a captive people. People don't like that. People don't like that. That's bad. That goes against our values. Yeah. And good thing for these young Jews for actually being like, no, fuck you, crazy lady. Good. Thank God.
And, I think, unfortunately, the very smart, bet that we made on Holocaust education to serve as anti-Semitism education, in this new media environment, I think that is beginning to break down a little bit. Because, Holocaust education is absolutely essential. But I think it may be confusing some of our young people about anti-Semitism because they learn about big, strong Nazis hurting weak, emaciated Jews. And they think, oh, anti-Semitism is like anti-Black racism, right? Powerful white people against powerless Black people.
which you did want them to think, by the way. That was part of it. That was part of the plan there. But this final point is chef's kiss.
So when on TikTok all day long they see powerful Israelis hurting weak, skinny Palestinians, it's not surprising that they think, oh, I know, the lesson of the Holocaust is you fight Israel. You fight the big, powerful people hurting the weak people.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's the lesson of humanity. She's basically saying it's not a genocide when we do it. It's like, what the fuck? You're not, there's a camera filming you when you say this, right? Like, the internet's a thing. You've been having a whole problem with anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiments on X recently. Did you not, in anywhere in your brain, imagine that this might end up on the internet for a fucking goy like me to point out? What the fuck, lady? What the fuck kind of point is that? It's like, well, yeah, we drilled in their head this Holocaust education that was like, it's really bad when a powerful country takes control and decimates a captive people. So when they see Israel with their military support from the United States and their jets and their machine guns and their bombs doing this to a innocent captive people in Palestine, that's bad. They see that as bad. It's like, it is. It is bad. What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh my God. I guess that's like, it must just be like growing up, blindingly rich. If you just grew up in like one of those counties in like Connecticut where like the houses have like platinum walls, and you just go out into the world and you've lived in this castle your whole life. And then you just like, isn't it annoying when your butler doesn't bring around your Rolls Royce and, set up an orgy for you? It's a real pain in the ass. You're like, most people don't think that's a thing or any kind of a problem at all. And it's just like, it's like when you just ran the narrative for, the past 80 years, it must seem weird when you're just like, but why don't they understand that we're Jews, we're victims, therefore we can do this. It's okay. Like, what the fuck, man? Pretty insane. Listless, that is my only argument. I really don't care if they turn each other into parking lots over there. Well, I mean, look, I understand that, but I just think like part of that is that we don't, because of the cartoony education we get about, villains and bad, it's just like, these are human beings that like didn't do anything except happen to live in an inconvenient place for Israel. They just happen to be in land that they want. And so they're trying to inflict horrors so that they'll leave. And then we're paying for it. Like, that's not like acceptable. And those people haven't done anything wrong. And we're paying for it. And we're propagandized to believe it's the right thing to do. And it's just like, it isn't. October 7th was really bad. I understand that. However, that same year, the most amount of Palestinians had been murdered by the IDF, in as many years. And this was a response. Dave Smith speculated that like there's probably some of these people who went and did that was probably the first time they ever left. And then there's all these conspiracy theories about like, how did that even happen? They have a wall up. Like, how'd you even get around the wall? Whatever, all that could be speculated, but there's also what looks to be like cars incinerated by Hellfire missiles. I don't think Hamas had that. There's a lot of insanity around this whole thing. It's just like, you're not going to convince us that this is right because you feel entitled to it. You're just not going to do it. Keep trying, I guess, keep it up. But one last clip and then we're going to wrap it up because it's just, they were just on an L streak. The Jays run an L streak. It's just crazy, man. They're just like, and these aren't, like I said, these aren't like conversations that you captured, right? Like when you didn't think someone was listening. These are conversations that are being broadcast at conferences, and then the clips are shared to the internet for a reason, to get the information out there. And then this is what you put out. These are the words that you say loud so that people can hear it. This is from the same event.
This is a story that I think if I were to...
This lady, Olivia Reingold, works for the Free Press, which is what Barry Weiss started, and that Larry Ellison just purchased for an incredible sum of money to be now like the head of the news department at CBS. Has a despicable pro-Israel bias.
Die today would be included in my obituary. It included it. There was so much controversy over it, but no one has disputed the facts, which were that in 12 out of 12 instances of photos that were alleged to show starvation and famine in Gaza, we actually found that these children had really complicated medical histories. These were just the first 12 examples that we looked into that were circulating online. And
I imagine they did a thorough job trying to find every instance. I don't doubt the integrity over there at the Free Press. I'm sure they found every single photo and they scrutinized this story. I bet they didn't cherry pick the 12 that support their narrative. They would never do that.
got this idea because when I started reading this coverage, this was this past August, I started to notice that the same children were being photographed over and over again. And they were often photographed by different photographers, which to me suggested a level of coordination. Obviously, these children are incredibly sick and often do need specialized food, but it is a war zone. And so sometimes that specialized treatment can be hard to get a hold of. But
kind of just glossed right over that one. Just sort of blew past the, it's a war. I mean, what are you going to do? It's a war zone. There's nothing we could do on this side, except maybe lift the blockade and get them the proper medical treatment and food that they desperately require. But as if we would do that, let's just move on.
It's way more complicated than these stories allege. And actually, because of our reporting at the Free Press, multiple news outlets had to issue corrections. But still, these images circulate online all the time and have often motivated violence against Jews.
You gotta love that one. I mean, you gotta love that. Like, our blockade is certainly starving Gazans, but those photos that you saw of those emaciated children, no, you have to understand the reason those kids were suffering wasn't because we blocked them from getting food. It's because we blocked them from getting medical aid. And then when those get circulated, then there's violence against Jews. So really, we're the victims here. You can't make that up, man. That's like... That's crazy, dude. I mean, it's literally like the Nazis afterwards being like, there's all this like negative hate on Germans. I mean, geez, what'd we do? You know, you don't understand. Oh my God. No, look, I will say this about the propaganda that comes out of Hamas. There is a lot of bad propaganda. So, because I've definitely seen like fake, you're like, there was like a woman like holding like a baby skeleton, but it was completely stripped. And you're like, what did like a flesh eating bacteria take care of that kid? Like, where's all his meat? But I will say, I'm suspicious of that. Either the people in Gaza don't really know better and they do try to frame it to create, you know, more empathy, or those are psyops, which I'm more likely leaning to psyop. Because there's so much carnage, you don't need to make it up. You really don't. So, look, Mossad is not above using like intelligence operations, counterintelligence, like where they'll basically like stir up controversy. I mean, it was some like report that came out that was something like 80 or 90% of the posts on 4chan that were anti-Semitic were from Mossad, right? So it's a common tactic that they use. So maybe like I would believe very readily that those bad produced Hamas videos are just that, to be like, look at these idiots. This isn't real. I don't know. All you got to do is look at those pictures of Gaza and you tell me, is that fake? Are those decimated cities fake? I mean, we could probably get some better reporting if Israel would allow reporters into Gaza, but they won't. So you just got to go with what you got. And that it's pretty bad. It's pretty goddamn bad. But anyway, take it easy, Leslie. Have a great night. I'm going to be wrapping it up here too. I appreciate you guys coming to watch this on Wednesday night. Sorry I wasn't here yesterday, but I came back today for you guys, because I love hanging out with you. But thank you very much for watching this show. I'm going to be doing Zax's show in about an hour. We're going to be spurging out about movies and arguing where they are in the hierarchy. Have you ever been there, Matt? I've never been. Did you know what came out about him? Did you hear about that, Sentient Dildo? About Douglas Murray, that he was a speech writer, or he was writing speeches for, I don't know if it was Netanyahu, but it was like someone in the Israeli government. Like he was literally working for the Israeli government. And it's just like, well, no, Dave's never been there, but he also isn't a fucking agent for the Israeli government, man. So if anyone's going to talk about their biases in this situation, I feel like maybe you should confess yours, fake journalist. You're like the guy from Watergate. Oh, I'm just a journalist. Like, you're bullshit. You're deep state intelligence. Shut up. But anyway, appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, Zax's channel tonight in about an hour. We're going to be spurging out about movies. Please go hang out there with us. That'll be cool. And next week, regular time, Tuesday, going to do the 91st episode of the MFer podcast. So you guys have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you all later. Peace.